Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is CTT podcast episode, 117, I think now, something like that. We've got a very special guest today who goes by the name of William Fitzgerald, or Bill, who, as far as I understand, and we've not spoke very much, Bill, and this is going to be a very interesting discussion. Bill is the lawyer who has several open cases and has also sued in the past Justin's son. And this kind of brings us together because Dan and I'm Matt, and this is Dan for our introduction. We also have been in lawsuits with Justin's son based on a takeover from a chain. So I feel like we've got some commonalities here, and I think if we keep the discussion high level and factual with no speculative suggestions about the character of Justin, then we can have a very interesting chat here. Dan personally has sued Justin or someone related to in terms of an organisation and won. So he's got a very interesting story to tell, and I think so have we. Could you give a quick introduction of yourself and let us know where you fit into this and what you've been doing over the past few years with Justin and how that's all going?
Be very pleased to. Good afternoon. So my name is Bill Fitzgerald, and I'm San Francisco native, and I've been an attorney specializing in business litigation, which is essentially contracts, real estate, employment law, business torts. Since 1983, in December, I will hit as an attorney admitted to the State Bar of California. I'm also admitted to various federal courts throughout California, Central District, which is Los Angeles, Eastern District, which is centered in Sacramento, Northern District, which is centered in San Francisco, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is one of the 11 Court of Appeals in the United States, immediately under the Supreme Court of the United States. And for the last 4.5 years, I have been litigating various employment, we'll call them wrongful employment practice lawsuits against Justin's son and one of his companies, Rainberry Inc. And in my first lawsuit with my co-counsel Norman LaForce, who actually has been an attorney for a couple more years than myself, we represented Richard Hall and Lukasz Juraszek, and they had been fired essentially because they refused to do certain things that were alleged in the complaint that's on file in San Francisco Superior Court, and as a matter of public record, that there were some illegal and unethical business practices that most of the employees in the San Francisco office of Rainberry objected to performing. Some of it allegedly is child pornography. Other parts of it was pirating intellectual property in the form of Hollywood movies that were being downloaded essentially for free in anywhere in the world on a Rainberry platform. And the Chinese market was a very strong customer of that type of piracy. Rainberry was taking tips on providing information on how to download these Hollywood movies for free. And they were getting their tips in one of the cyber tokens that Justin's son was marketing, primarily TRX, but there were other BitTorrent associated tokens. And when our clients refused to pursue some of those practices for the financial benefit of Justin's son and Rainberry, they were terminated. And so California law, you're allowed to terminate at will as long as the reason you terminate them is not something that's illegal or inappropriate, which Our clients clearly alleged that was the case. And frankly, there's a lot of corroborating testimony from a lot of other witnesses, including other Rainberry employees, that corroborate all these unethical, if not illegal, business practices. Justin Sun had the chance to testify in deposition and either deny these allegations or tell his own side of the story, and he refused, to the point where an arbitrator struck his answer and entered his default, which means he couldn't fight the case. He was automatically liable, and we were just about to go to arbitration, which is a version of a trial, and it was merely going to be a matter of how much money we were awarded for our clients. That was the first case. There was a second case where Lukasz, Juraszek's boss, eventually suffered the same types of discrimination and termination for whistleblowing. There is a fourth lawsuit where we have a client. That case is not settled yet, and he was the controller and former chief financial officer for Rainberry, as well as at times Poloniex back in Boston. And it's alleged in that complaint, which is again a matter of public record in San Francisco Superior Court, that Justin Sun wanted to use corporate assets for personal reasons, and Mr. Heinrich refused. Mr. Heinrich was the subject of a grand jury subpoena out of the Southern District of New York, where the Southern District of New York District Attorney, or United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, apparently assisting either the IRS or the SEC, was asking a lot of questions about Justin Sun and some of his other businesses, including Poloniex. And that has now resulted in a civil enforcement action by the SEC that was filed in federal court in the Southern District of New York, which I believe is Manhattan, New York City. There's another class action lawsuit in that district regarding what we have read to be, and again, in a complaint that's a matter of public record, as is the SEC complaint, about manipulating cyber currency. There's one other lawsuit I haven't mentioned, and that was by another supervisor of Lukasz, Juraszek, and also our other client that just settled, Zeman Ha, and that supervisor's name was Chung Lee, and we had named him as a defendant in the Hall case, the Hall and Juraszek case. Well, he also turned around and sued Justin Sun, again, for discrimination and just, woeful employment practices, including physical abuse on at least one occasion in front of a lot of employees. That's pretty much kind of the comprehensive summary of the cases I've been working on for just over 4.5 years.
What do you represent on those cases? What's your
Always plaintiffs. So Richard Hall and Lukasz Juraszek in the first case, Zeman Ha in the second case, or the third case, because the first and second cases are Richard Hall and Lukasz Juraszek. That was filed in San Francisco Superior Court, compelled to arbitration by Rainberry and Son. Same thing in Zeman Ha. That's the third case, filed in San Francisco Superior Court, compelled to arbitration by Rainberry and Zeman Ha. And then the fourth case is Stephen Heinrich, who was the controller interim CFO, again filed in San Francisco Superior Court, compelled to arbitration. In that case, we've just received the arbitrator.
So, in other words, you're getting pretty good at tackling lawsuits with Justin, or at least you're building somewhat of a reputation for it.
Yeah, you could say that. You know, we've learned a lot about Justin Sun and some of his other dealings as we've pursued the Holland Juraszek case, and a lot of people have reached out to us. Other employees have contacted us, and some have considered becoming a plaintiff in a lawsuit against them, and some we might have accepted, others we wouldn't have, because we're kind of only going to take the cases we think have merit and have very significant damages.
Yeah. Well, I'd be interested if you're open to it, hearing what happened with our side and specifically with Dan and a few other people on the chain, where Justin stole a bunch of their tokens and eventually had to hand them back. It was in the millions of dollars, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was well over 5 million total. Not just from me, but from community members.
Well, that's significant damages.
Yeah. So,
and Justin Sun certainly has the wherewithal, financial wherewithal to pay it if he decides to do so, if he or forced to do so.
Yeah.
Well, it was done through Steemit Inc., wasn't it? So it wasn't Justin directly.
It was a company he owned.
It was a company that he owned.
Steemit Inc. But he was the one that had the control of it. So
what happened with that? Eventually it went through litigation. A bunch of people supported the case and put in to get their money back. And
yeah, I mean, Steemit did everything they can to drag it out as much as they possibly could, dragging their feet. First they tried to offer nothing. Well, first they tried to say, well, we have to pay their fees, and then we earn nothing, so we come out negative, and then we just kept fighting. Then they'll say, oh, we'll give you a little bit, and then it just kept going until eventually we got the full amount. But they, it took years, and yeah, we just got, we ended up eventually getting what he stole back. But he literally did it in public, right? And he's like, hey, I'm going to steal your money, and then he did it. Because he controlled the chain. He bought a large sum of tokens, what we call a ninja mine or a pre-mine, and using exchanges help was able to take over a chain. And then he literally took the money out of people's accounts that he didn't like, forcefully out of their wallets. And then he had a folly because he's not a great technical person, and he made a bad mistake, and he's really bad and poor key management, and ended up sending it to a wallet that was compromised, that, from one of the people from the community he was stealing from, we don't know who. And then they ended up sending the money to the exchange saying, stealing is bad, talking about Justin Sun. So he tried to steal. If he would have stole it, we might not have gotten it back, because then you have to deal with we wouldn't be able to fork a blockchain. We would have had to sue him for cash. It'd been much more difficult. But since the tokens were sent to a exchange, Bittrex, they were the middle party, and then they got them, and they're like, whoa, what do we do with all this money? We need lawyers, basically. And yeah.
I've never heard that story. That's very interesting.
Yeah, he tried to steal money, he failed, and the money was sent to a centralized exchange, and exchange you have to prove ownership. And Steemit had tried to prove, they actually tried to come in there saying it was ours, and then eventually lost completely. But yeah, that was a crazy. For me personally, it was, hefty, close to, if not over $1 million that he just stole from my pocket.
Well, my one comment would be, I'm wondering if the SEC is going to be looking into that once that case develops, since there was some, I know Poloniex was one of the subjects of the grand jury subpoena to Mr. Heinrich, and I've heard rumors from journalists that those cold wallets saga also.
Can you just say that last bit again, Bill, because you cut out?
I said that the cold wallet, where money is involuntarily donated by token holders into a Justin Sun cold wallet. There may be repeat versions of that story going on in the Poloniex part of that SEC investigation and lawsuit in the Southern District of New York. Right now, that's going through the pleading stage. There's no discovery, so anyone following it really doesn't know where the SEC is going to go with that, including whether or not there's a criminal enforcement action in the cards. I mean, you have to ask the United States attorney.
Yeah, it's interesting because the theft of the money and return of the money didn't really carry a sentence with it or anything, or any repercussions for the company apart from having to pay it back. But it was made possible because the official reason is that a sketchy fork was sent to the exchanges. So when you'd make a fork of a chain, you send the code to the exchanges to run, and the exchanges trust the company that often runs these chains because they're nearly all run by companies, which is not.
Yeah, they don't audit the code. Keep in mind, that's absolutely crazy.
That's correct. So the official thing is that the code was taken, unaudited, and run, and then that automatically powered up a bunch of stake on behalf of other users that they didn't want powered up, and then voted for a bunch of nodes on the chain that put Justin Sun into power. And then the second time it was done, it resulted in that money being stolen from Dan's account and other people's accounts. And it was kind of like just said that, oh, we didn't review the code properly, sorry. We just ran the code that Steemit Inc. said we should run. And all these bad things happened as a result, right? So that's the official thing in the media. But there's a lot of other rumors around whether or not there were other things going on there were intentional behaviors or not there. I'll be careful what I'll say here. You know, you can imagine there's a lot of implications here in the crypto industry as to what comes out of that. And yeah, maybe there is some form of SEC investigation on that. I don't know. But there's smoking guns there.
What was crazy was I had a bunch of the token on Binance at the time. So they literally took my token away from me and used it against me. So my my funds were actually used by the exchange to then steal my money later on. Not saying the exchanges did the theft, but they enabled the theft with my funds and some of my friends' funds as well. So, that's why centralized exchanges have been, they have a lot of power that people didn't realize. But, imagine how crazy that is. Somebody actually using your tokens against you to steal more tokens from you.
Not, again, the official story is that they didn't do that on purpose.
That's the official story.
They did that by mistake because some code was run unaudited. Yeah. But then the question is, well, why aren't you checking the code before you run it? But it is what it is. It's what happened, and it's just an interesting corner of the crypto world. There's probably hundreds of other stories like that around that are waiting to be investigated by people, and people like you, of course. And the reason I'm interested in talking to you is the crypto industry has a lot of reputational problems. We're trying to build credible technology in the crypto industry that actually helps people and actually helps us build a parallel economy that gives people digital rights so everyone has the right to transact, right? We don't do pre-mines or ICOs or pre-seeds or pre-rounds where we make ourselves rich before we release our tokens. We distribute them fairly, and we do a lot of work charitably as a result because we're just trying to get work out there so it's open source and people can use it, and then if things flourish from that, they flourish, but that's a fair distribution. A lot of people don't do it that way. A lot of people release tokens early. They make companies. They make centralized entities that are controllable and corruptible. And so that a lot of crypto doesn't quite meet the promise that it set out to fulfill. And there's certain characters in the industry that really ruin the reputation of people who are genuinely trying to do a genuine job with the crypto world. And guys like you are obviously. You seem to have developed a passion for finding these types of stories and acting upon them, or representing a class of people who can maybe make some amends from what they've lost, or reputational damage they've lost, or financial damage.
I would say cyber currency and the BitTorrent streaming, or people can either use it for social goodwill or for personal profit that may not always be completely on the up and up. But it sounds like you guys are fighting a good fight, and fully support that and try to help people that are doing that. And sometimes it's done via someone filing a lawsuit.
So, have you got anything else to say on that?
Well, no, nothing on the story in general, but there's a lot of bad actors that are giving a lot of bad names. and obviously it's good to bring them to light, showing people what they do. And I think in the next 3 or 4 years, a lot of dirty laundry is going to come out from these people, and inevitably, hopefully, the light is shined upon them. So,
yeah, I mean, if that SEC case proceeds against Justin Sun and whichever defendants, companies the SEC named, there's probably going to be a lot of dirty laundry, especially if they go find out some of the ex-employees who have corroborated the testimony of our clients. I assume those types of employees would be corroborating the testimony of other employees, companies that Justin Sun owns, and possibly corroborate other bad acts.
From our case, no criminal record came against him, but he was proven guilty, right? He was proven that he tried to steal funds, and then when it came to proving who the funds were, he couldn't prove it. The people he stole it from proved it, and they got the funds back in a court of law. So I mean, and you just sweep that under the rug. But it's like this guy literally tried to steal millions of dollars from people, and he lost the court case. So he was guilty, and he just walked scot-free. It was proven that he did try to steal the money because the funds were provably returned to the people that they belonged to, because he had to fight it in court case. He didn't have any criminal charges for this, but it just goes to show this guy tried to steal millions of dollars, lost it in a court case, the funds were returned, but now, very few people even know about that. But the guy's an obvious criminal, tried to steal millions of dollars, and he was just a bad thief at this time. But yeah, and it's shocking that these people are still walking around, doing what they're doing when they literally told the whole world, I'm going to steal. They tried to steal, they failed, and the court of law said, no, those funds do not belong to you. They belong to these people, and they were returned to the rightful owners. But that's still a crime. You try to steal somebody's money, it's not ethical, even though you couldn't do it. If you rob a bank and then you trip and fall and the money falls out and then you have to run away, that's still a crime. So yeah, it's kind of shocking that he's still in the industry as big as he is.
Well, and it appears he's hiding out in Singapore, which is a country that is not a party to the Hague Convention, which basically allows companies to extradite between them. And so he's in a country where he's beyond the reach of the long arm of the law.
Not by coincidence.
Not by coincidence. Well, that was interesting because, he had a period where he was a diplomat of Grenada, and that kind of got withdrawn at some point. So when we heard that was happening, it's like, okay, there's a lot of things going on here where this guy's trying to get himself protected as diplomatic status, and now he's not got. I understand that's been withdrawn, and now he's in Singapore where he's not going to get extradited. So he definitely knows that the pressure's on.
I'd say that's why he's in Singapore. The rumor is that he left China without using his passport and went out through Western China. So if that's true, that would lead me to believe that he's being watched by the Chinese Communist government authorities as well as other government authorities throughout the world. And he obviously knows that, or else he wouldn't be hiding out at where he supposedly lives.
Yeah, interesting.
He's nobody's fool. He's definitely been quite successful doing whatever he's been doing, and there's not a lot of people who have been as successful as him doing whatever he does.
Have you noticed any patterns then, as you've been involved in so many cases now? Are there recurring things that are coming up here? And
well, yeah, it's common here, at least here in America. You hear there's people who are above the law. Some people say that's the Bidens. Some people say that's the Trumps or the Clintons or whomever. And there seems to be an attitude by Justin Sun that pervades almost all his conduct, that there's the law according to Justin Sun, and however it's convenient for him to make money, that's the law. We have deposition testimony where son was instructing members of his staff on how to underpay fees to Apple for their use of Apple products. We also have him wanting to leave child pornography or other pornographic materials that the San Francisco employees, primarily the Caucasian employees, just completely objected to and were going to have nothing to do with. And there's testimony under penalty of perjury, including by the former chief operating officer of BitTorrent, where Justin Sun said he would leave above the line where you could see things on the screen legit, but where people knew where to look to go below the line, that's where child pornography was and other pornography, and people would know to go there to look for it, and that would give him more hits. I mean, I'm sorry, in my opinion, that's completely immoral and illegal, and that should be stopped. And if it made money for Justin Sun was going to pursue it.
Is that and that's you said that's sworn testimony in penalty of perjury, under penalty of perjury. So that's actually happened.
Yeah, and his attorneys heard it too, and they had their chance. They took a full day on follow-up questions after he had testified under oath and verified and corroborated a lot of what Richard Hall was saying, and Justin Sun had his chance to have his deposition taken, and he hid behind a purported ambassadorial position in Grenada that was just complete gibberish, legal gibberish. There was no factual or legal basis for his claim for absolute immunity. After about 2 years of pursuing it, the arbitrators finally saw it that way and said, if you're not showing up for your deposition, I am striking your answer and entering your default, and you're going to be automatically liable, and the only question is damages. That's when our case settled, after that happened. So I think that same pattern is going to emerge in the rest of the cases we have. And it may happen in that FCC civil enforcement action, because he doesn't have to come appear unless he's extradited. And if he can hide out in Singapore, then we're going to have that same fact pattern of him being above the law, of him doing what he wants to do, and he's not going to come talk to anybody about it or answer questions unless in his mind, he wants to brag about it. Like what you're saying he allegedly did in your case, where he bragged he was going to steal something and then he stole it, but he didn't steal it well enough and it came back. So yeah, there's emerging repeat patterns of unethical, if not illegal, behavior by justice.
That one you just mentioned is not alleged. It's actually a closed case. It's actually closed. The money was returned.
Yeah, I'm talking about my case. The money's been returned.
Right.
So what do you have any reason? Do you have any feel for why he thinks he's so untouchable, so powerful? Do you think he has some kind of big backing, or like what do you think it is? Or he's just very rich? He has connections. What do you think the audaciousness comes from?
I am mystified. I am mystified about how he thinks he can get away with some of the things he has done. I mean, he's physically struck employees, and I guess he's just got so much money. Like if he has to pay for something, we'll end up paying for it if they make him. But I think he's on a very immediate return financial basis is his perspective. That whatever I can make money with now, and if it costs me something later, I'll deal with that later. And he just ignores a lot of future consequences, and he gets away with some of it.
It seems like he gets away from jail time
Yeah. I mean, maybe most of it he gets away with up to this point. I mean, I've seen him state he's worth over 2 billion. I've heard him state I've seen tweets where he's over 4.5 billion. I mean, his net worth has fluctuated over the years, but it sure is a lot healthier than our 3 bank accounts put together.
Where do you think he got his initial wealth from, his initial backing? Because he kind of came into the crypto scene after I got involved, and he was all over the place. Everyone saying I was this rich billionaire. So he made money before he got into crypto. Do you have any inklings or rumors or things that you can talk about?
So I mean, I read that Verge article on the beginnings of Justin Sun. I think it was the second in a series, and I've heard rumors, and I know you've heard the same rumors that he apparently was somehow backed by the Chinese government or Chinese government intelligence agencies or military. I've never seen any evidence of that. I doubt that's the case now. I've also heard rumors that he had been a member of the Triad and he had somehow gotten away with some of the Triad's money. And, I don't know if they're chasing after him too. I don't know how one would ever be untouchable to the Triad if they were really going to go after you. So I don't know, one, if that's true. And secondly, I don't know what he's done to avoid persecution by the Triad, if all of that was true. But those are just a couple of the rumors going around. I mean, Justin Sun's a person of interest to a lot of people. Some are government authorities, some are just cryptocurrency aficionados who either agree with the way he approaches things or disagree with it. So he's a colorful guy and he gets a lot of attention, and I think he revels in it.
So just coming back to this SEC case, can you just explain what's the next step in that and what the details of that are, that next step that we're waiting for?
In the Stephen Heinrich case?
I believe you've mentioned the SEC case ongoing.
So the SEC case, that's a civil enforcement action where they're basically saying stop doing all these things that are legally not allowed. But right now it's in the pleading stage. The SEC, filed a 50-something page complaint in the Southern District of New York. Justin Sun filed a motion to dismiss, arguing that the things he's alleged to have done by the SEC did not result in consequences in the United States, which I'll go on record as saying that's laughable. That's just not what's actually happened. He's also alleged that he is not under the jurisdiction of the federal courts in America. I think that's ridiculous also, because my understanding is that there have been statements made to the Southern District of New York Federal District Court that Justin Sun has never had a presence in America. And that's just an absolute lie, because he was working in San Francisco almost every day for at least 6 months, if not 2 years. And there's plenty of deposition testimony in our case that talks about that. And my clients, saw him almost every day. And I've got 4 different clients that worked in the Rainberry office in San Francisco, and they would be willing to cooperate with the SEC and say, no, I saw him every day in his office for 6 months in San Francisco. So that's not true. The statements being made to the court that he has little connection with the United States of America, it's false. It's false.
Can you explain what the things are that he's alleged to have done by the SEC?
I'm not a securities person. I mean, I just know it's kind of cryptocurrency manipulation where he's trying to artificially pop up the volume of the cryptocurrency, and then he sells it when it's high, and then he buys it again when it's low, and then he publicizes it again, gets the number up. I think that's the gist of the complaint, but so they filed a motion to dismiss. The FCC decided that rather than fight the motion and have the judge rule on it, they amended the complaint. And that just happened in the last month. I have not read that complaint, so I don't know if they added additional claims for relief, or if they took some out, or if they expanded the factual underlying basis. We're looking at violations of claims for various fraud and securities manipulation.
Yeah, so it's typical securities manipulation. Okay, interesting. I mean, that's going to be a very interesting one to watch happen. And then you also mentioned there's a BitTorrent case, a case against BitTorrent going on.
Well, I consider our case the BitTorrent case, right? Because Rainberry bought BitTorrent, and Steve Heinrich, the controller, interim CFO, was originally a BitTorrent employee.
Right. So
and then he continued on at Rainberry.
This is where you got really sketchy content that's clearly under the control and known by Justin, and he's still directing traffic there, but kind of turning a blind eye. So this means that allegedly at some point during the discovery of this case, there's going to be some interesting information potentially come up about what's being stored on BitTorrent and the fact that people had the ability to remove it but didn't, potentially.
Possibly. I mean, hopefully. But he's got almost no one left at Rainberry. I think the only person left at Rainberry that's on record is the general counsel as an employee. We think Justin's father is the CEO listed with the Secretary of State, and as a matter of public record, it has the son's surname, so we're assuming it's his father. But his father doesn't know anything about what happened 5 years ago. Justin's son and all the employees that got fired. And there's no one left that has personal knowledge that works for Rainberry to testify to refute the facts of our client's case. So I don't know where that leaves him. I mean, maybe that was Justin's son's plan to remove all of his assets out of America so that if we did get a judgment, we'd have to get it confirmed, and then we'd have to hire a private investigator or a collections attorney and chase his assets around the world. And who knows where those bank accounts are. There was rumors he was a citizen of St. Kitts because he filed a declaration in an earlier federal court lawsuit that he was a citizen in St. Kitts. He claimed he was an ambassador appointed by the government of Grenada. It's an island nation in the Caribbean. There's rumors he was trying to buy citizenship in Malta. Everyone knows Malta is known as having some good financial hideaways within its nation. But another repeat pattern here is all of these places are island nations, including arguably Singapore.
I wonder if he'll be in the UK at some point then.
Just hopping around until
you
can't hop anymore.
So what is your understanding of what happened with the Grenadian diplomacy, where he got diplomatic status and now it's withdrawn?
So what happened was Justin's son claimed he was appointed as a trade representative for the nation of Grenada, or is it Grenada? It's Grenada, and that's the correct pronunciation. And he was appointed to the World Trade Organization, a WTO, centered in Switzerland. So he was trying to claim that because he's an ambassador, he's absolutely immune. So if you're an ambassador, and you get an auto accident and someone gets severely injured, that ambassador can't be sued. That's just the law. That's what all the nations got together when they created the concept of ambassadorial immunity, and that's just the law. I mean, I don't think that's fair. I mean, someone could be drunk driving and kill someone in an auto accident, and if you're the ambassador, you're not liable. You can't be thrown in jail, and you can't be sued for civil damages. So there was a big motions back and forth, and oppositions and replies to the arbitrator, where we pointed out that ambassadorial immunity in the form of absolute diplomatic immunity only attaches to the higher ranking consular staff and some of their assistants. There are other forms of immunity. For example, you're working in the United Nations and you're in charge of a food program and get tainted food or tainted food because you're acting in your capacity and actually doing something. So that's known as functional immunity. There's another kind of immunity known as transactional immunity, which is basically if you're a criminal and you're going to Switzerland to attend a World Trade Organization meeting as a delegate on behalf of a country, they can't grab you in transit to or from Switzerland. You have absolute immunity while you're traveling as that trade representative or ambassador. So that's transactional immunity. We argued that was the only immunity that attaches to a World Trade Organization trade rep. The arbitrator kind of came down in the middle and said, he basically said it depends what someone is doing, but he said for purposes of what happened in our lawsuit as it was alleged, that neither functional or transactional immunity would be effective to bar our claims. So then Justin Sun presents a letter from a minister of the Interior in Grenada, and it says he's been appointed in the character of an ambassador, and that's in quotes because that's exactly what the letter says, to the United Nations for emerging science and emerging technology. And so then he said, okay, now I'm a member of the UN, and I'm an ambassador to the UN, so now I have absolute immunity. Dismiss your case. And we found case law and educated opposing counsel and the arbitrator that the absolute law for at least the last 100 years in America, if not more, is that if the Secretary of State of the United States certifies you as having a diplomatic position where an ID card is issued to you, then you're absolutely immune. So we phoned the United States mission to the United Nations in Washington, D.C., and we asked them if Justin Sun was listed on the Secretary of State's rolls as a certified diplomat. And they asked us for his ID number, and we said he's never given us one. He's just given us some visa that claims it's a diplomatic visa. And they told us there was no record of Justin Sun being an ambassador. So the arbitrator denied that motion, saying you have not provided a factual basis for me to even get to the legal basis of what type of immunity you would enjoy. His attorneys promised the arbitrator that once those applications were submitted to the United Nations, they would provide a copy to the arbitrator so that he could see that the process of becoming certified as a diplomat by the Secretary of State of the United States was an ongoing process. The arbitrator waited 8 months and noted in the order denying the motion for absolute diplomatic immunity that nothing was ever submitted to him in follow-up. They then tried to renew the motion for diplomatic immunity. Again, we phoned the United States mission to the United Nations and said, is Justin Sun's name listed on your certified diplomat rules? They said, no, he's never submitted anything. And so we pointed that out to the arbitrator, and he denied it again.
So that means he's saying that he's got diplomatic immunity, but there's no evidence that's been presented that he does, but yet the United States is blocking cases against him based on the fact that he has diplomatic immunity?
No, they never, so someone never filed any of the paperwork. I mean, first of all, you have to assume that being in the character of an ambassador for ASET, which is Science and Emerging Trends, that falls within the level of ambassadors that are entitled to absolute diplomatic immunity. We never got to that point because nothing was ever submitted to the United Nations by Justin Sun or the nation of Grenada. It later turned out, Justin Sun, so he started referring to himself as HE, Justin Sun, His Excellency, based on his ambassadorial position. And, he noted in a Twitter or X account, tweet, whatever you want to call it, that he was no longer the ambassador to the United Nations for Grenada. Well, it later turned out that the Minister of Interior for Grenada, that government had been turned out in a national election and a new government came in. And as soon as that new government came in, they revoked literally every ambassadorial appointment made by the old government. Because then it turned out that at least one of those ministers admitted that they were charging people about $250,000 to get appointed as some type of ambassador. And so, that's just not appropriate. And, but that's just another, colorful story in the colorful life of Justin Sun, good or bad, take it or leave it.
Wow. I mean, it's a myriad of cases. That's for sure. It's very interesting.
Well, I'm sure there's other cases in the pipeline by other individuals.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look like Justin Sun has stopped behaving the way Justin Sun behaves.
And why is it that you've personally taken this up, Bill? Is it just that this guy's name kept coming up and you've ended up working with these cases by accident, or have you actually decided that there's characters like him in the crypto industry that needs some litigation taken against them? What's your stance?
Yeah, it was just kind of a fluke that someone came to us, referred to me through a friend, friend of a friend, knew I did employment law and knew I, would take on hard cases that were going to take some time and some patience and some dedication to get your client where you needed to be while keeping your client calm. When you get fired, that's a pretty emotional situation with instability. The first thing you're trying to do is get them to concentrate on finding a new job. Things aren't going to happen in a day or two or even a year or two. But you just got to keep on digging and staying persistent. And, as the Richard Hall case was progressing, then Lukasz Juraszek got fired. And he came to me. I was trying to help prevent the firing at first. And there was just no way. Justin Sun had a dead set that Lukasz Juraszek was a troublemaker and wasn't going to do what he needed to do to make him money. And, So then Lukasz became my second client, and we consolidated those facts into one complaint. And then after that happened, some of the other employees, gossip was getting, on the state court, San Francisco Superior Court state court website, and they saw my name and my phone number. And so people started phoning me. And that's just how Justin Sun kind of became the center of my work for the last four years.
Wow.
And that slowed down a little bit, but I'm still going to be devoting against Justin Sun, presumably for the next 2 or 3 years.
Interesting. And are you open to more cases? Because content like this might get some views, and people might end up calling you again.
If they're legitimate cases, I mean, I don't file cases that don't have merit and try to extort money out of people. That's just not the way I've ever been raised. But it's a good case and has good facts, and my co-counsel makes decisions along with me as to what cases we think's worth spending our time in. Because there's a lot of work involved. If you've ever seen the complaints we file, some attorneys simply have to fill out a form, like for a motor vehicle accident or a breach of contract. You just have to fill out a form. It's pre-engineered by the Judicial Council of the state of California, and it's just check off the boxes and add in a few facts, and you're done. Our complaints were over 50 pages long, just filled with facts, just like, this is why we're suing you. So that's kind of the way a lot of written discovery in terms of written questions that need to be propounded. They still do it just because it's not verified under oath in the complaint. But yeah, if there's more Justin Sun cases out there, we'd look at them. As long as we were competent to give legal advice and represent our clients. I mean, there may be areas of law that we don't specialize in, and we'd help those people find other attorneys that we thought were competent.
That's really interesting to hear, and certainly the crypto industry needs some people pursuing cases like this and looking after the little guys. There's been a lot of people that have been hurt by characters in the industry, and the industry does need a little bit of cleaning up. So it's good to hear. You got any other questions?
No, just pretty much what I thought I would hear with my experience with Justin Sun. So just seems like he's everywhere. We'll see what happens in the next couple of years. Definitely needs cleaning up.
It's going. Yep, it will play out in an interesting fashion. I'm quite sure of that.
For sure. Yeah, Bill, we should keep in touch and keep, let us know how this is all going, and if we'll play this to the Hive and Steem community, and there's a lot of individuals in those communities that were hurt by some of the things that he did. So that you've probably got a lot of support.
Most definitely, and if there's any of those documents I referred to today, and you want to see them, so you can corroborate for yourself and authenticate for yourself that those things were either said or were filed or are claimed by whoever is a plaintiff or a witness. Me and my co-counsel are glad to give you those documents, as long as they have not been deemed confidential under a stipulated protective order ordered by a court or an arbitrator.
Oh, definitely. We should definitely communicate again, so you can drop us those, because I think the people listening to this will be interested to see the evidence that you're talking about, and we should put those in the links in the description of the video that we made, blog that we made. Have you got anything else?
If you want to have another podcast, and we can go through some of those documents, and put them up for a review, I'm fine with doing it.
Yeah, maybe we could do that. Maybe we could do that in the future, and we'll touch base again and do some of the actual individual cases and go through the detail. So we're going to cut the conversation here. So for the audience, is there any way that people can find you, or any way they can contact you if they need to?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's on the complaint. My email is Fitzgerald, WSI75 @yahoo.com. So that's FITZGERALD, W as in William, S as in Sam, I as in Igloo, 75 @yahoo.com.
Nice.
And I'm listed on the California State Bar's public website, so it has my email, my phone number, my address. So that's all publicly available information.
Okay, well, I'm sure some people watching this will be interested to contact you at some point as well.
Okay, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and if I can be of any further assistance or insight, don't hesitate to give me a call.
It's a pleasure
All right,
talking.
Bill. Appreciate it, my man. Thank you. Thank you, sir.